Welcome back to the Seas and Riddell's War Chest, the Glossary, your hour of power. This is comedian censorship we're looking at now, number 1 in the Sea Glossary. A classic canary in the coal mine scenario when even comedians won't perform at certain venues and universities due to the change in political correctness and what is deemed to be out of bounds for mockery. The comedian's ability to mock the ludicrous and irrational badly frightens those who are willfully blind to the truth and who then must take egregious offence to maintain their internal integrity. In Germany prior to World War II, all comedians were arrested who dared mock Hitler and the fledgling Nazi Party. Make them laugh or make them gasp, but did they cross the line from entertaining to rallying? A treasonable offence with dire consequences. Commenting on the irony of the stance or drawing attention to the lunacy of the subject mirrors the cry, "But the emperor has no clothes on," and invokes the same crowd punitive reaction as well, themselves bound over to the lockstep of the cowardly, fear of being expelled from the group. Offendedness is never an objective quality, a fact that the woke philosophy completely misses. "You're offended," says Ben Shapiro. "So what? It's only a feeling, isn't it? Like a headache." Love that, Ben. What about complicit collusion in the Seas, in the Glossary? Exemplified by parents indulging a child's identity fantasy when going through a dysmorphic phase in their gender identity, to the point of transition and body mutilation at the hands of more colluding surgeons and therapeutic counsellors. Counsellors? Exemplified also by the telling of lies at the funerals of atheists and the lawless, and mutual denial of the fate that has come upon the unbelieving deceased according to the words and warnings of Christ, the Redeemer and Judge of the world. No, he didn't ask your permission to adopt that title, did he? He gave it to himself. You can do that sort of thing when you're the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end of time itself. You don't need nobody's permission. Collusion is certainly not to be confused with giving genuine comfort, genuine condolence to the bereaved. To be complicit means not speaking out when danger is anticipated or threatens, not telling the truth in the face of pressure to comply. Collusion leaves us with a fantasy world of fairy dust construction. You can do anything and be anyone you want, they say. Itself in total conflict with Christological instruction on the ecstatic heaven awaiting the reality compliant and the unimaginable and everlasting agony of the father of lies' own eternal place of torment, both of which compose universal and eternal reality, either of which await each and every immortal soul on every minute of every day until the day of their last heartbeat. Or how about compassion echo chamber while we're still in the seas? Compassionate echo chamber, a riot of rescue as I call it, all walking in lockstep. Government-controlled media and messiah complex people stealing moral virtue by collusion, demonizing any who oppose them, and ultimately operating at the victim's own expense. Or compelled speech. Canadian legislation Bill Law Abida C-16 states mandating the use of compelled speech, which trans people and all those with a fanatical agenda demand from society's mask of compassion and fear of going against the prevailing fashion. This all predicated on the debatable narrative, now law in Australia, New Zealand and approximately half the states in America today, that we are an inclusive society, which must be shown to be true by legislation, forcing conformity to the psychosis of a tiny minority of the population, flying in the face of these nations' own Bill of Rights, including freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, and freedom of thought. This has produced and reinforced Jung's feared psychogenic epidemic, the loss of the public's ability to even distinguish genders, gender recognition, and more sinisterly disabled the public ability to communicate or even to protest without threat from a government that has swung towards totalitarianism in this matter. This is particularly egregious and unsafe for young girls who are left exposed to or under severe duress to compete with the biological male's dominance. And in post-puberty, their proclivity to experience more shame and negative emotions via the self-consciousness phase than men often results in permanent emotional scarring. You can look to Jordan Peterson to explain that one. Oh, I love this dude. This is a great concept. Concept creep. Nicholas Haslam, Australian psychologist. The constant fear or greed-driven mental temptation to expand, crucialise or catastrophise the issue. Similar to scope creep, commonly experienced in the construction industry, concept creep crucialises things that aren't so crucial in an effort to better understand the phenomena and hence to control it. And so a demic is pitched as an epidemic, and an epidemic becomes a pandemic in the perception of the World Health Organization in an effort to raise awareness, release emergency funds and permit or allow governmental overreach via powers of mandate. The DSM-5 diagnostic manual, you know, the psychologist's Bible, regularly adds more and more diagnosis, itineration of mental illness to such everyday life experiences of grief, discouragement, stress and self-indulgence of bad habits, as they continue to confuse description with prescription, not to mention the enablement of claims on insurance policies. Grief, discouragement, selfishness and poor self-discipline are not mental illnesses, but need to be presented as such in order to claim benefits. People do not have to be imprisoned in their own homes to exercise due caution in the face of a genuine epidemic, but no government wants to be pitched as asleep at the wheel either. Have a look at iatrogenic harm if you want to check that one out. What could have been a classroom consciousness-raising discussion about societal privilege and disadvantage quickly degenerates into racist slurs and white versus black fights when concepts become crucialised. Consensual sex, a highly dangerous confusion actually. Maybe it was consensual last night, but today it's not, because you never did think it through or both of you were too intoxicated to think anything through. Don't do anything with a person that you are too embarrassed to actually talk these things over with, because if you can't even talk about it, you certainly don't know them well enough to get that close. Thank you, Jordan Peterson, for that perler. That was pure gold. Now, what about confirmation bias? To hear and to see what one already expected to see or hear. It manifests as cherry-picking the evidence according to an overarching historic bias or hidden agenda. Refer James Reason's Swiss cheese model, whereby if just one of these fail-safe items of checks and balances had actually been checked or implemented, the aviation accident, the miscarriage of justice, the wrong person condemnation, or the unjust law implementation would have been totally avoided. Confirmation bias, easy to say, difficult to spot. Conspiracy theorist, a reasonable diagnosis of a psychiatric condition / psychosis of extreme suspicion without any corroborating evidence, but a straight-out whip word as per homophobe or white racist when used to silence or describe anyone who holds distrusting views of governments and authorities' motivations. Views that you strongly disagree with, despite having never listened to the evidence or ever weighed it up for yourself, and probably have no intention of doing so, lest your cosy, trusting world collapse and your naivety is exposed for all to see. Oh, controlling the narrative is something that we've heard a lot more of lately, isn't it? Control the narrative. It's easily identified by the absence of peer reviews and doesn't begin with the proper examination of the evidence. No counter-argument allowed causes an echo chamber, which in turn causes loss of trust, which in turn causes suspicion of vested interests at work in government, global finance, big pharma and health, and the proliferation of conspiracy theories amongst the general public. Thank you, Dr. Sanurdand, for that one. COVID-19 origins. Muddy Waters Report, January 23rd. Are you ready for this? COVID-19 origins. Was it zoonotic spillover in late 2019, now showed to be without any substantial evidence, or research-related accidental leak or incident? That it was funded by American taxes was once labelled a conspiracy theory. now also substantially verified. Check out Dr. Robert Redfield's Director of CDC report to the Senate inquiry. Critical legal theory. This one's better known in some places than in others. But let's talk about pathological ideas of social privilege and self-interest as the basis for all law, as written up by people largely unaware of their own hidden agendas, hidden even to themselves, and therefore unworthy of our woke loyalty and respect. While this is certainly true of some law badly in need of revision, the carte blanche defamation of all laws as selfishly weaponized and politically driven is both simplistic and dangerous. It gives the essentially antisocial, those inclined to rebellion and lawlessness, the moral permission, the excuse they seek to defy and rebel against any law that doesn't fit their own perceptions. Insurrection and rebellion result. Critical race theory, both a product of and fuel for wokeism, a controversial concept that polarizes school boards and politicians in the USA and in the UK, while seeking to highlight the insidiousness of what has come to be known as systemic racism. Is it a theory put up for student consideration, or is it actually indoctrination in reverse racism and white guilt? Is it genuine instruction to greater self-awareness, conscientization, if you're from South Africa, or simply making white people feel badly about the past in an endless effort to invoke white guilt? Some argue that their motivation for this drive is so that black people can justify themselves as ongoing innocent, powerless victims, thereby removing responsibility for ongoing bad choices, a favourite stance of woke consciousness. See the originators, Derek Bell, Alan Freeman, Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, who, by the way, coined the term, and Richard Delgado, hate speech commentator, for further research into this most complex and evocative of subjects. And have a look also at educational politics while you're at it. Well, that concludes the C's in Riddell's Glossary, the war chest, for your own use when it comes to debating for the truth in a muddled and confused world. Thanks for listening. I'm David Riddell, War Chest Specialist. If you like what I've said so far, let me remind you that you can download the entire transcript for free. Click here and you'll be able to read it for yourself.